in this day and age, there's a lot of kids with autism and learning disabilities. And one of the subjects you brought up was bullying. And so some of these kids are coming, and you've got to start where they're at. You can't just like go totally Marine Corps mindset on them and tell them, quit crying, suck it up. You got to meet them where they're at, and sort of, sometimes it's just a hug, and like giving the kid a high five and listening to them.
Hello, welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle. This is James Cox, and we are episode number 49. I have a special guest with me today. We have Mr. Joshua Smith from the Kentucky area in Tennessee, owns several martial arts schools. He's a lifelong martial artist, entrepreneur, competitor. So we're going to have some good topics today. I know Josh is very passionate about bullying, bully prevention, as well as just being a top competitor and an excellent martial artist. So, hey, Josh, I want to thank you for coming out and giving us some time today and adding some value with some good content that we can say to these listeners. So if you'd like to start, sir, just maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your journey and some of your experiences.
Okay, yeah, my name is Josh Smith. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. It's actually Mount Juliet, Tennessee, which is a northern suburb of Nashville, and own 4 premier studios. And I'm a lifelong martial artist, as you mentioned. I started in the 80s after watching the original Karate Kid, and started in really traditional Shotokan karate, actually, and gravitated in my teenage years into more of the point karate and sport karate type of competitions, and really did that all through my life. I'm 41, and I competed like 2 weeks ago at the Pan Ams in Miami. So, I'm still out running the circuit, and at my peak level of performance, I was a top number 1 ranked competitor in the heavyweight division in NASCA for a season of my life. And so I have competed and fought against the who's who, at least of the last generation. I know there's a up and coming newer generation now, but I guess we'd be old guys now, but I've stood toe to toe with, everybody that you can imagine from the NASCA circuit.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's good. Well, let's start with competition, because I know there are schools that focus heavy on competing. There's schools that not. And with a big number of students, you're going to have a small percentage of people that compete. But should martial artists compete? Should they? Do they have to? Should they not? And what are the benefits?
Yeah, great question. Now, when I started my first school, when it was just me as an instructor and I was much younger, I really thought that everyone should compete. And I didn't ever really make it mandatory within my schools. But speaking of the subject matter, maybe not so much as a business owner, but just as a practitioner, I absolutely believe in it, to the point to where people get mad at me, because when they tell me they do martial arts, and then I'll usually follow up and ask, about their credentials. And what I'm asking is not their lineage and who, what I'm asking is, have you competed? What circuits? Who have you fought against? What kind of victories? And that puts them in a whole new category for me on, when I'm thinking about them and how good they are. Not to just piss everybody off that happens to listen to this podcast, but I've been in this 30-something years. So I think that I probably know my way around martial arts studios and genres and masters and lineages and tournaments and whatnot. But it's just a fact that the guys who compete at the highest level, whether it's pro kickboxing, pro point fighting, pro jiu-jitsu, because I've done IBJJF tournaments as well, those guys are to the 10X factor better. I mean, they're training harder. They're so much more aggressive. I mean, they've got moves for days. And that goes jiu-jitsu or the karate side, both, and so yeah, I think it's important. Now, to answer your question, do I think everyone should have to do it? The older I've gotten, the more soft, you relax a little bit in your mentality, and not everybody's trying to be a world-class competitor. Some people are just hobbyists. My wife reminds me of that often, and not everybody loves martial arts like you love martial arts, Josh. That's what she'll tell me. And that's true even in my students. I see that a lot. A lot of kids come in. So yeah, do they get benefits? Absolutely. Just coming to class, hitting pads and mitts and bags and making friends and hearing some positive messages and stuff. Yeah, it's still worth doing. Absolutely. I have mixed feelings. Do you want to be a badass? Yeah, then you need to compete, because otherwise you're not going to be made into that at the dojo level. You're just not. But there's different levels and desires. I take for an example, I like riding sport motorcycles. I've always had a thing for crotch rockets. I've been riding them since I was like 19. I'm 41. I have a brand new Ducati, like special edition race bike. I don't race the thing. I never take it to the track. You know, I every now and then think about going to get some kind of lessons, but I'm just a hobbyist. I'm not that great. You know, I'm just moderately good at riding it. So that would be an example of something in my life that I enjoy doing, but you know, it's just kind of in the middle. So I think that's fine. I think as martial artists, a lot of times, especially as a competitor, we forget that not everybody's going to be that dedicated. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I came up similar where we were more of a tournament school. I had my first karate tournament after 2 months of training, and then probably estimate somewhere around 600 tournaments after that, as well as I was doing boxing, kickboxing. Currently, I started doing IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu. So I feel that I'm a competitor too, man, and it's important. I know the benefits and the value that I've gained, and I've seen it in other students. I tried early on as well as highly encouraging / making it mandatory for people to compete, but I learned that it's just not for everyone. But you never know. A lot of people will change their mind after years in, and all of a sudden they do compete. So even if we have a small inter-school tournament, or I guess you could define competing in different ways. Not everyone has to hit a national tournament or become a pro kickboxer, but maybe they do an inter-school tournament. Maybe they're competing with each other in class. But you need some way to gauge your own progress and to learn about yourself with some adrenaline, you know, a little bit of that warrior spirit where you get tested in battle, and it's just unpredictable, right? I mean, you can only punch a bag so much, you know, drilling self-defense so much, but competition does a lot for you. That's for certain. You know, and you're right, man. The people, you accelerate your learning because you're out there with the best, and who doesn't want to win, you know? And then, you know, when you don't, you learn. And what does it do with you when you lose or when you win? What does it do with you? Maybe determine what kind of person you are weaknesses and strengths that you have, right? So it's a lot of self-awareness, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we do a lot of others, you know, the other benefits of martial arts. And most of the listeners here are martial artists, are instructors, but I'm always about, man, that the benefits of a good martial arts academy, the things that we're going to get, if it's competition, self-defense, fitness, fighting, personal development. You know, you're like me. We teach kids, we teach adults, all ages, all levels. It is still about the quality of the martial arts. You know, we run successful businesses, but it's still about the quality of the martial arts and producing good black belts that hopefully continue training, that can change their lives as well as impact others. So with all of your martial arts experience, what are some of the top benefits that you've seen? It really comes down to it, you know, the deeper why of why you're teaching martial arts and what you're seeing the students gain from it.
So I think to answer your question, you know, every school and instructor is going to have like a different culture, and it's usually like the arts side, like martial arts, like you can see that when you enter a school and you can watch their fighters, watch their classes, and you can kind of see the vision of the instructor flow. So for me, it was mental toughness. That's a big thing to me. I start the kids young, like saying, I tell them, like, you can't even cry. Like, if you got to cry, run to the bathroom real quick, get your emotions in check, come back out. So like, those are the things that I'm always trying to teach them. Like, even when we're doing stretches in the calisthenics portion of like our lesson plan, when they're stretching, and I don't let them whine. They can't go, I tell them, stop all that, be quiet, you know, hold it together. I teach whole lessons like on that, mindset lessons on, you know, your opponents or your enemy. They hear you cry, looking weak, like they're using that against you. You know, like, hold it together and, you know, quit all the whining and stuff, like be mentally tough. And so those are the big things that I'm always really trying to impress on my students. But, you know, in this day and age, I collectively probably have 600 or 700 students between all my studios. There's a lot of kids with autism and learning disabilities. And one of the subjects you brought up was bullying. And so some of these kids are coming, and you've got to start where they're at. You can't just like go totally Marine Corps mindset on them, tell them, quit crying, suck it up. You know, like, you got to meet them where they're at, and sort of, sometimes it's just a hug, you know, and like giving the kid a high five and listening to them and knowing that their best is something different than like what you would like it to be, but you've got to start where they're at and then mold them and grow them. So, but the positive benefits are the big like buzzwords that we hear in martial arts. It's going to be like the confidence and the focus. And I think a social aspect is huge on it too, because we live in the day and time where video games and screens. I mean, even with my own children, like left to their own demise, they'd set up in their rooms all by themselves. The only socialization they'd get is like when they link up with other people and they watch each other play games or some kind of weird stuff they're doing these days. So the martial arts dojo provides a very social aspect, and that is so important to humanity. So those would be the big things I would say.
Yeah, right. No, I feel you that the mindset, developing them early, but understanding that there's a balance, right? That whole yin and yang, because you were in the Marine Corps, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, man, we appreciate your service there. So you have probably a tougher mentality and mindset experience than some people, but man, we do got to build people, because I don't want to sound like that old man talking, but man, it's a softer society nowadays, right? A lot of entitlement, and to try to build them from the inside out, but to meet them at their different levels. And we can do that pretty good in the martial arts schools with the way we teach and what we do. Hey, I know you went through, man, it may have been a few years now. You know, time goes so fast, doesn't it? And I saw a lot of posts and some things that you went through personally with bullying and the results, the consequences, if it's cyberbullying, this and that. What do you have to say about the whole bullying, some of the things you've gone through, and how do we, I couldn't say we stop it, but how do we deal with it?
Yeah, so I don't know that I have a perfect solution, but I'll give some just ideas and things that I've gone through. So about 3 years ago, just for the sake of the audience, in case they don't know me or the backstory, my brother died, by the way, of suicide, my little brother, and he was 16 years old. He was a lot younger than me, and my dad had him through a different marriage, and so he was big like me, like 6'2" or 6'3", but he was overweight, and he played in the band at school and wasn't super athletic. And he did martial arts some as a kid, but not as like dedicated as into it as I was. But he was getting picked on at school, and there was a little incident, like where it wasn't a little incident, but there's some school kids released some screenshots of some text messages that were sexual in nature, and put it on social media, and he ended up shooting himself and killing himself, over the incident. And so and I'm giving the short abbreviated version of the story here, but either way, I ended up getting in touch with, it was Melania Trump, Donald Trump's wife. She had a program called Be Best, which is like centered on anti-bullying, anti-drug use, and some stuff like that. And so I was able to go to the White House a few times and meet with her. And I did some school talks, and then COVID hit, and it kind of slowed up like getting access to school. They kept shutting schools down. So it hasn't really like picked back up so much, but we're really just focusing on raising like awareness to the kids, and like letting them know that their words matter, their actions matter. And once again, not to sound like an old guy like you mentioned, but rewind the hands of time 20 years ago, we used to meet on gravel roads after school and fight each other. And those days are over with for the most part. That's not really happening today. The kids attack each other like on TikTok, Instagram, saying stuff like text. It's just a different way of them getting at each other. And unfortunately, my wife reminds me that fighting is trashy, but I think there was a therapeutic value to it to at least get it out of your system and get over it, but these kids today are bottling this stuff up, and then they're being humiliated, and then they're having to go to school and face the same peer group that finds out whatever embarrassing stuff, whether it's true or not true. It doesn't even matter. The court of public opinion a lot of times is worse than the facts or reality of the situation. So there's all that going on. And so when I do the school talks, I try to I tell my brother's story. Usually I'll carry like a picture of him to try to bring it to life a little bit, put a face with the story, and just tell them to not do that kind of stuff. And if they're the victim of that, and that's also a slippery slope too, because I deal with a lot of parents in my business, and they all claim their kids are being bullied. Sometimes there's like various degrees to this, someone's picking on them or saying something kind of mean. Well, they've been doing that since the beginning of time. Like this isn't like some new thing, but kids have to stand up and say something and protect themselves if needed. And, we talk about it in my lesson plans in the karate dojo all the time. Like, there's a difference in, if someone touches you physically, you need to defend yourself and do that with the quickness. But even with that being said, I'll mention like my brother, although he was big and he had a little bit of martial arts experience, he wasn't a physical kind of guy. And it really brought it to life to me, because I always thought like, if someone did this, like, you better, that just wasn't him. not in a million years. That wasn't something, he wasn't getting ready to go to school the next day and beat up the guys and girls that were involved in this situation. So unfortunately, people usually know that, like they know their audience and who they're messing with. So they purposely victimize the kids or adults that they know are very least likely to retaliate. And so it's an unfortunate thing. In my experience, confidence is the number one thing. If we can develop confidence in an individual, they'll set boundaries, healthy boundaries, and they'll make people respect that. And the people around you can pick up your energy as well. So they know if you're confident. It's like this weird thing. So it's almost like you can't fake it because people know that it's fake. So you have to develop that. And how do you develop that? Well, it's through doing things that build confidence, things that are difficult, and you overcome a certain objective or a certain goal in life. And martial arts is great for that, but other sports could be as well. Football, anything that's kind of physical that makes people have to be tough mentally, physically, overcome things. I think there's more than one way to achieve that goal. So that's kind of my thoughts and kind of what happened. And
yeah. What I heard, the biggest word there was confidence. Such an easy word, man, but so much to it, right? And the challenges, man. I'm sorry what you went through in the family. That's a tough situation. It's a positive that you were able to create a movement, to make it to the White House and to be nationally recognized and to impact other people's lives with the picture of your brother that you were able to show, the testimonials, and then the strong message of stopping the violence, stopping the bullying, and just doing better things, because it's a shame on the things that happen. That's 100%. Confidence is, we say it's like that muscle that you have to grow, and it takes time to build a muscle. It can take time to build confidence. Martial artists, to me, good martial artists, they all kind of look alike. And I don't mean that they actually look alike, but there's something. It's that magical synergy of the way their head is up, their chest is out. You can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it, that amount of confidence. Charisma comes along with it, and just the need that you don't have to prove yourself to others, because but you're also not going to be a pushover. So I hear what you're saying, and that strong role model. I grew up with a single mom. I was the youngest of 7, and we were dirt poor, and I was getting in trouble. She couldn't handle me, and if it wasn't for martial arts, I definitely would have been, dead or in prison. But it was my martial arts instructor that became that father figure to me, because my father passed away when I was 13, and I found martial arts immediately after that, and good thing, but it was a different kind of fear/respect. If I didn't do something right, my mom would call my instructor, and I didn't want that to happen again. So, but to have that in our life, and we can do it, man. We can teach this confidence. We've seen it so many times. You can't win them all, but you know what it takes, Josh, is it takes time. So this is back, and I interviewed David Pantana, and we talked a little bit about this. How do we keep the students from quitting on something that is so good for them? Maybe they're not getting that instant result. They're not doing jump, spin, and flying kicks in a month. They're not that new person right away. The parent brought them to us because they were failing in school or they were overweight, but they didn't get those instant results and they want to quit. So we both know that a lot of times it's not the students quitting. With all respect, it's the parents quitting, for this. So what do we do about this quitting? And develop this no quitting attitude and the commitment, because we know that martial arts can give you that confidence that can change your life, if not save it, but they can't quit on us. So what do we do?
Well, it's a multifaceted thing, and changing the psychology of the parent is near impossible. So for one, from a business aspect, I believe in term contracts. That's a whole different conversation, but I think that there should be a term. And I say that not just for the money aspect. I explained this to a guy last night that works for me. I said, above kicks and punches, I'm teaching commitment. And I even answer the phone like this when a parent calls and they say, "Oh, we want to quit." And I'm like, well, or what happens if 2 weeks from now we want to quit? And so I always tell the parent, I'm like, hey, that's not uncommon at all. And most often your kid whined once or twice about wanting to come into class, and you took it, and you've got to be a parent on those days, and you've got to say, hey, you signed up for this and you told me you wanted to do it, and we have X amount of weeks or months left on this, and so we're going to finish it. And I said, I don't just tell you that like as a business person. I have children as well, and if my son wants to sign up for wrestling, I don't care if it's music lessons, soccer, he likes soccer or whatever, well, he's got to go to every practice. And even if he's like injured or something like that, I still make him go and sit on the bench, because he's showing commitment to his team and to his coach. He's showing that he's coachable, to play under another man and listen to his directions. And like, I don't let my son whine and complain and throw fits. Like, and I know that's me, and that's not by far everyone that I interact with or deal with. But, you know, I don't know that you're going to change a parent, but I always say, in short, kind of what I just said to you on the phone, like, or if I'm talking to a parent about the whole quitting thing. But I think it's also good because in the business aspect, like if someone knows that have 6 months or 6-month membership or a 12-month membership, in their mind, there's a start point and an end point. And a lot of times just psychologically, the consumer needs to have that, you know, and then hopefully the last part I would add to this is that when I see a lot of quits in one of my studio, we track metrics every month. Like, I'm knowing the class is probably not that exciting. And so I've got one instructor right now that he's a good guy, but we're having some quits, and I've been watching these classes, and I think they're probably mediocre. He could kick it up a notch. So we have to have human connection. We have to be teaching quality martial arts, and kids don't necessarily know what quality is, neither do parents. So you're having to make it fun and disguise the quality somewhere in there, because if the kid's not having fun, they don't care. So, you know, they don't want to keep coming back. And that's why a crappy martial arts instructor that's fun and likable can still have a lot of students, you know, because he has a human connection. So I think it's important that your instructors know that. And so I always have a pop quiz with my instructors. I'll ask them just on the spot or at a staff meeting. I say, hey, why do kids sign up for karate? And they answer, they'll say, for fun, sir. And I'll say, why do parents sign their kids up for karate? I said, for focus and discipline, sir. You know, like, so I make sure that they know that they have to package all of that up in the one thing and make sure, because the parent's paying the bill, the kid's coming, kid doesn't care about anything but fun, but the parents, you have to deliver what they want too. So if you can marry those two things and make sure you're over delivering or consistently delivering all the time, then I think you would solve the quit problem.
Yeah, because we don't want them to continue that habit. You know, again, we deal with the same things, man, that, you know, if you quit on this because you didn't like it, who knows? Maybe you got hit. Maybe the exercise was too hard. Maybe it wasn't challenging enough. Maybe it was just, you know, not every class is the greatest class. Who knows what you're going through when you stepped on the mat. Most of the time we find that the hardest part is just to get them on the mat. Once they're there, they love it. They get a lot out of it. But with kids especially, and with adults, maybe even as much with adults, it's about the choices they had before they decided to go to a karate class at 6 o'clock. What was going on, you know? Just like us trying to make it to the gym. There's been times where I backed out because of whatever else was going on that you felt was a priority. So, but you got to be consistent, because you don't get anything out of it unless you're just, you know, consistent with that. But yeah, man, you know, we don't see people regretting staying with martial arts, do we?
Never.
But we sure see them regretting quitting. So let's maybe some rapid fire type questions, Josh. What's your favorite martial arts style and why?
I'm a sport karate guy. If that is a style, it's kind of takes on its own style, although I know people have many different backgrounds. But sport karate, you know, the point fighting genre. And I've done everything from like Japanese full contact kumite fights, the kickboxing matches, the IBJJF, like jiu-jitsu tournaments. You know, I've dabbled in a little bit of everything, but the why of that. So I like the spastic movements of point fighting, having to just be a master of timing and distance control. It's so crafty. I mean, it's like the 10x factor of chess. I mean, it's just a game, you know. I mean, it's like you get hurt every now and then, you know, get a good shot off or something. I mean, you've got to be at least medium tough to do it, but you can compete every weekend. I did for years, like 30, 40 times a year, like, you know, as opposed to like when I did Japanese full contact tournaments, like I might get hurt, my legs get thrashed. I may not even walk for 3 weeks hardly, you know, but on the karate tournament stuff, you know, it's just fun, a great, and I think it translates and carries over pretty well, just in my experience. So you get really good at not getting hit and getting scored on, and like then that's a plug and play concept. Like as you move into other arenas of of martial arts, like I always notice those sport guys, you know, their kicks are crazy, their distance control, foot balance, angles, like body movements. I mean, they're very elusive. So, you know, I think it carries over really well.
Yeah, you're going to learn to be really fast and first, or to have excellent timing and counter. But I used to say point fighting would teach you how to make quick decisions.
Yeah,
Right, for sure. Cool. All right, what's it mean to you to become a black belt? Can everyone become a black belt?
Yeah, so I think everyone can become a black belt. You know, I don't know that I've always thought like, because a black belt really has lost its meaning mostly. So when someone tells me they're a black belt, that usually doesn't mean a whole lot to me, except for I think like even the crappy black belts probably means they stay committed to something for a little while. So I mean that's cool. But as far as skill wise goes, martial arts has been, karate especially, you know, has been so watered down over the years that that's why I usually will lead into like, well, where have you competed, or you know, who are you affiliated with and stuff like that, because I need to dig a little deeper. So just the very term of I'm a black belt, you know, doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. Now, one other little side note that I'll add to that is like, so I grew up in a really informal martial arts school where we didn't have like this big oorah testing process. Like you might be coming to class for 3 months, 6 months, a year. You show up one day and my instructor hand you your blue belt, you know, and then another year goes by, like, you know, or maybe not even that long, you know, like he thinks you're doing good. So like that was like the process. There wasn't like this testing thing. Like you might walk out of the ring in a tournament, you know, and get your next belt. Like he had it in his gear bag and he hands it to you. And so it went on that way. So like I was a brown belt or something like that. And my instructor wanted me to start competing as a black belt. So on the day of tournaments, I'd wear a black belt, but I wasn't a black belt. And then I don't even remember really the magical moment. I mean, like one day, like he handed me a black belt. And so like, it wasn't like this big testing process of it. It was like time and skill based only. Like that was it. And so in my schools, obviously that's different. That's not a very scalable model. It's not professional in business. You know, people have to have a defined curriculum and date and time. But that definitely influences me and my thought process on it, because I know that in the school I grew up in, you only got a black belt if you were black belt skill level. That was it. Like he didn't care. I don't even know how much he charged. Like my mom probably didn't even pay. Like it was, you know, it was strictly just a skill based thing. And if you didn't have the skill, you didn't get a black belt. You didn't get any belt. Like you might come there and be a white belt for the rest of your life. Like, so, but he only had like 12 students. So that probably was why.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe 15 when it got real big. But, so yeah, you know, I mean, but I think anyone can get a black belt for sure. And like we've already mentioned in the start of this interview today, I've also, the longer I've been around this, I know that a black belt means different things to different people, and it as well as it should. So everybody should be able to come, and you know, even if it's just to get some mobility and exercise. A lot of the older people that call me for lessons, that's really like their thing. They just don't want to go to the gym. Doctor recommended they lose some weight or get to moving around. So, you know, should I hold them to the same accountability? No, not even close.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of based on that individual, right? You know, it's like someone earning their black belt literally is their black belt. They can't be compared to the person beside them, or, you know, someone they saw at a tournament, or, you know, in the movies, right? Everyone's a little bit different, but definitely shouldn't be given away. It needs to be earned and deserved with time, with effort. At the end of the day, you know how to protect yourself. You're a good person, and if it came down to it, you could fight. You know, above average to me, you know, so it's being the best version of yourself, right? Is being a black belt. How much better can you get? You know, are you the best that you can get right now, or close to that? Then, you know, you're on your journey of becoming a good black belt. That's for sure. It was definitely, man, sometimes it's sad because we can see more bad martial arts than good at times, right? It's unfortunate. You know, what do you see overall as, if we have to use the word bad? We talked a lot about the good things of martial arts, but what do you see that could be bad, or painted in a negative picture? Not that we're looking for negative, but, you know, things are out there. What's the bad parts of the martial arts?
So I think I've seen like the worst side of martial arts through the competition martial arts. So I've seen the best and the worst, right? Because there's like certain venues and even certain cities probably like in America that I won't compete in anymore, and I won't expose my students to those federations or those people, because they're not all on the up and up, and showing the characteristics or character level of martial arts. And so they're not all good guys that are out there in good groups, and almost sometimes resemble more of like a gang type of environment and affiliation and stuff like this, you know. And so I've seen some crazy stuff pop off, like real fights, group fights, tournaments and stuff, you know, between different people and their dojos or teams or whatever. And so, you know, I don't want to affiliate with that stuff. And then also I'd like to add that, you know, not all studios are good quality just because they have a lot of quantity, meaning, you know, a lot of students or something. And then you see a ton of like just backyard operations too, which, you know, people say, oh, well, we're not about the money, we're about the training, but it's more like trailer park genre of like nastiness of martial arts. And a lot of times they're not very good either. So like you see this all over the different spectrum. So just because something's big and makes a lot of money doesn't mean it's good or bad. And then on the other end of that spectrum, I wouldn't necessarily say that everyone with just a small little school doing it as a hobby is good or bad either. But I tend to find that a lot of times the smaller ones do have poor quality, you know, because if they were really good, they'd probably have more people associated to what they're doing. But, you know, I couldn't just say that you could always pinpoint, you know, any certain thing. You just kind of need to go feel it out. And the bad part is the consumer in martial arts a lot of times is not, they're not sure what's good or bad either. So like they get hooked up into something and they don't know any better or any different. There's no contrast or comparison for them.
Yeah, that's true, man. It can be a lot of politics. I've seen organizations like that too, if it's tournament or even style affiliations, that they do become like gang-like, you know, your colors and this and that, or even cult-like, you know.
Yeah.
It can be crazy, that things in the martial arts. Well, you know, because you're following a leader or a system or a patch or logo. Crazy world. But yeah, you're right, man. There's too many factors to say this or that is for certain, because there's good and bad in everything. Well, what about some techniques? I ask this question to a lot of people because I like it. I get some pretty unique answers. And you've probably been asked before, what's the best martial arts technique? Or like you'll get, man, if I had to learn one move, what would it be?
Oh, great question. I'll give two answers, but I'll give my first answer that I teach my kids, because I give them this pop quiz all the time, all my students. I say, what's the number one best martial arts technique? And they'll say, side kick, back fist, reverse punch. Like they'll go through this whole guessing thing, you know. And the ones that have been with me for a long time, they always know the answer. Number one martial arts move is physical fitness, because I don't care what kind of martial arts moves you know, if you're physically weak, fat, out of shape, no cardio, because a lot of times we just need to like put up a 3 or 4 second little struggle, push, pop, and run away. But the people who do not have the physical abilities to do that, you know, your martial arts will be rendered useless. So, you know, that's always like my textbook answer. But to get to more of the technician side, like for the martial artists, because that's probably who's listening to this. If you watch any of my fighting videos, you'll see I'm 6'2", 210, 215 pounds. Like it's just a side kick, body punch, you know, back fist. Everything is just a master of timing, you know, a couple foot bounce, slight little angle, pop, straight side kick right above the belt. I mean, just hard and straight, you know. And so that would be my answer, is that I like a straight leg side kick, you know, but I know in a self-defense situation, sometimes turning your body completely sideways and hitting that side kick might not be the go-to move. But it's just be hard, fast, explosive, you know, one shot, one kill type of bam, you know, just get it done and master it.
I like those, man. I like both of those. The physical fitness thing is important. I haven't heard someone give me that answer yet, so that's true. You know, when you see you watch MMA fighters or any fighters really, and their level is so close, man. These guys are equally skilled. So who's going to win? Usually the one in better shape, just a little bit more physically fit, especially when it gets into those deep rounds, right? So that makes a big difference. Yeah, lead side kicks are good. You just got to watch out if you're fighting, you know, a wrestler that might grab a leg. But hey, kick hard and fast enough and see if they grab it, right? Well, what else do you have to say to us, or, you know, some value to the listeners? I know you have a lot going on, Josh. You're staying busy, and man, I commend you for the things that you're doing, impacting lives for martial arts schools. What would be some things you could close with, just tips, pointers, advice?
Guessing that my audience who would be listening to this are either martial arts practitioners or business owners. And that's just to associate with like-minded people, get information like this podcast or different Facebook groups, and go to seminars and do things. Always remember that you are a martial artist, and I've even had struggles with that through years, getting so engulfed in my business life and trying to build a family and make money that I forget to practice or to train. And so keep things that are fresh for you, that are goals, like getting a new rank or winning a tournament or going to a seminar, something in front of you. Keep that carrot in front of you at all times, and carry that same thing into your martial arts business. Always be setting goals, trying to be better. Remember that you are a martial artist, and that'll keep, as long as you're training and doing your business and keeping that balance, it'll always keep things fresh for you in your life and keep you excited.
And kind of some remembering where you came from, always being a student, learning, improving, right? Yeah, you see a lot of those martial artists. I used to notice how sometimes when their rank got bigger, the head got bigger, and the belly got bigger.
Yes.
You'd see what size belt they wore when they were a 3rd degree black belt. They're in a size 5 belt, and now they're a 6th degree black belt, and they went up to a size 7. So what happened? Well, they forgot about training and where they were, and maybe, continuing to be a student. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Josh, I really appreciate you, man, and the time and the content. Good stuff. So people can find you. I know you're all over Facebook and social media, and you have your schools in Nashville, Kentucky. Yeah, Premier Martial Arts, Joshua Smith. But, well, my friend, I appreciate you once again, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Yes, sir.